Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about whether the markets are likely to dump at market open tomorrow. Since tomorrow is Monday, I believe. Let me actually look at that. Yeah, since tomorrow is Monday, are the markets going to dump at the open? Is LTCN and BCHG going to continue to go down? So, with that being said, let's get it. So, as you guys can see here, we have the indices pulled up. So, looking at the indices, this is one thing that we told you guys about initially that we were taking a look at was the afternoon trading session in futures. This is kind of a precursor to market open and what could potentially happen by that time. One thing you guys need to understand about futures is we'll get into the grayscale trust in a minute, okay? But what you need to understand about futures is the main trading sessions usually happen between midnight, or they start at midnight and they start at 6:30 in the morning on Pacific Standard Time. So even though the markets are going up now, the narrative could change, or the direction of the market, I should say, could change starting at those time frames. Those are the major trading sessions that come out of London and also the United States. So let's take a look at the different markets here. You can see that pretty much all of the indices are going up. NASDAQ's going up, Russell 2000 is going up, S&P 500 is going up. And the metals were actually going up, but it appears that they're kind of chopping around, so not really too sure about that one, but oil does seem to be coming down. So the equities and oil are usually inverse indicators. They're what's known as an inverse pair. So when the equity indices go up, oil generally goes down, and when oil goes up, the equity indices generally go down. So that's kind of how it works. So far, so good. It looks like everything is going up, which means, of course, you guys already know, crypto is going back up. Bitcoin and all the other altcoins are going back up. Of course, they're still way down from where they were, but you guys can see some of these have just recovered just tremendously in a very short period of time, hence crypto being the fastest horse in the race. Because I can tell you guys right now, render was down at like $7 or something like that. Now it's already back up nearly $2 tokens. So, and Solana was down much more than this too, way more. I think it was down to like 110, 120, somewhere in there. But it's quite a bit of recovery. So let me just check on the trade real quick. Make sure that this is all good. Okay, yeah, the trade looks good. Still turning bullish, or still moving up, I should say. So anyways, let's first get into Bitcoin. So look, the thing that's going on right now that you guys need to understand that's so important is the conflict, the issues that's going on between Iran and Israel. So you guys can read up on this on your own time, but basically Iran tried to retaliate against Israel, and it did not go so well. In short order, that's pretty much what happened, and I think the markets in the short term are kind of celebrating that. So as long as there's no more conflict going on between the two of them, things should be good to continue to move up. But I still do want to point this out to you guys. So if Bitcoin has a lower candle close than these candle closes here, that could be cause for concern for a drop. And I'm actually going to pull off this indicator and pull up the Bollinger Bands again, because I did say at one point in time we were going to use these and talk about these. So let's go ahead and talk about them. So as you guys can see, the price got pretty overextended in the Bollinger Bands. Why does this matter? Because generally every time it gets outside of the bands, it always comes back within the bands. It's usually how it works. You can see it happened here with a pullback, here with a pullback. Of course, this pullback was very short-lived, and then we just basically went straight back up, so it didn't really mean much of anything. We could be seeing something like that now. It's really hard to say. That's why we use this indicator in culmination with a bunch of other indicators. You can see we kind of have like a, not quite a fan pattern, but something similar to a fan pattern playing out here for potential. Any break of these supports would be considered to be pretty bearish. So I want to go out to higher time frames real quick and show you guys these just so you can understand what's really going on here. So this is kind of how we see the markets long term and what we're looking at right now, okay? So we'll get into LTCN and BCHG here in a minute. So, okay, there was a short history back here. You can see there was only 2 years of green here and then a year of red. But once we kind of got this pattern established, It hasn't broken since. So we had 1, 2, 3 years of green and then 1 year of red. As you guys can see, we're on the 12-month time frame. It's not generally something we look at because we already know how this works, but we just wanted to show you guys for those of you that don't know. And then you have 1, 2, 3 green, 1 year of red. The red year is obviously the bear market, and we have 1, 2 years of green. So if this pattern is to play out in sync with previous cycles, again, this is all based on cycles. We should hypothetically, theoretically, even if we close, like, let's say down here at 45,000 or 50,000 or something like that by December of this year, that still would consider to be a green year, and we could see another green year next year. This is one of the reasons why I've told you guys I think that Bitcoin could potentially have a large pullback into and after the halving, and then we kind of chop sideways, or we just simply chop sideways, and then by the end of the year, the indicators catch up, and then we start moonshotting towards December, January of next year. So something else I wanted to point out to you guys, if you take a look at the lines that are going vertical here, you can see these lines. So generally speaking, the second year is the year that we have the halving, right? So we have this recovery year here, then we have the second year out of the 3, which is generally where the halving is. And then the following year, we have this massive parabolic candle. So similar story here, recovery year, halving year. And then the following year, well, the candle wasn't as big this time, but the following year, the point is that it was much more green and much higher than this one. And then once again, first year here, recovery year, which was actually a very strong year thanks to the spot ETFs, halving year. And then on the third year, if the cycles remain true, we should see another large green candle on this particular chart. So the next thing I want to point out to you guys that you guys probably have not seen on this channel, or if you have, we've talked about it very rarely. So once again, I will reiterate, when we get outside of the Bollinger Bands, as you guys can see, we were outside of them for a long time on the previous cycle before we ended up coming back into them. So I do understand that's a possibility. We have been outside of these Bollinger Bands now for going on almost 2.5 months. But whenever this happens, we pull back into it. Something else I'd like to point out to you is that the last time we had a bull run, well, the first half of it anyways, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green monthly candles in a row. Then we had a large, nasty 55% pullback, and then we had another move up. Of course, you guys can see this trend line here held. The blue EMA, it's hard to see, but it's right here. This EMA, 21 EMA, did hold during the bull run, and then we had a falling wedge pattern, which confirmed bullish. That's how we knew the bull run wasn't truly over. But the point of this is that we've had 6 green months in the previous cycle, and now we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green months. Unless this one closes green, of course, that would be 8. So it does look like on the monthly we're a little overextended, so prepare for the possibility that there may end up being a pullback in crypto. There's no guarantee this thing's going to go higher. We have not seen a death cross on either the MACD or the RSI yet on the weekly, although the MACD is kind of converging down. So that's just something to keep in mind. A more bullish perspective is that even though we've had 7 green months in a row, we have had this candle close above this zone here, which was previous resistance. As you guys can see, it held very, very firmly in the previous cycle. So that's all good and well. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at LTCN and BCHG. Oh, before I do that, so one more thing I want to point out to you guys. We did actually talk about this in, I believe, yesterday's video or the previous video that we did, so we're going to go over it one more time. It does appear that the S&P 500 does want to have a pullback here. So as you guys can see, every time we've had a death cross of some kind, we have had a pullback. So this was last year's pullback during summertime that we were telling you guys we thought it was going to pull back and where it could bounce from. And then, of course, we got the breakout. So we saw it once last year. And then the last time we saw a death cross before that was back in 2022. So we saw one, basically just one death cross in 2022 and then one in 2021. So as you guys can see, this indicator is extremely rare. The RSI did also have a death cross, and you guys can see the last time we had that was basically the last time we had a correction here. Same thing with the NASDAQ, except the NASDAQ has actually had a confirmation, as you guys can see right here. Last time, again, summer of last year, and then all the way back in 2021, and also back here in 2022, although we were pretty close to the bottom at that point. Russell 2000, same thing. So, looks like we're going to have one now. And then we had one basically last year for the one dump that we had last year, and then 2022 and 2021. It's the exact same story across all the indices. They're pretty heavily correlated. So again, death cross. Then the last time we had one was here, and then back here in September of 2022. As you guys know, September, October is notorious for being terrible months for risk on assets for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But it is just like the worst month ever for anything that can go up in value. So let's go ahead and go down to LTCN and BCHG here. This is basically, I'm just pointing these things out to you guys to let you know that even though the supposed issue between Israel and Iran seems to be settled for now, that the technicals do still say there is a risk of some kind of pullback or correction. So I want you guys to keep that in mind, to give you a heads up that there may be some dip buying opportunities to come in the future. So if we take a look at the Bollinger Bands, you guys can see that we're pretty heavily extended out of these. It would not surprise me if it maybe even came back down to the middle of this band, although I think that's unlikely. That would be at about $20. I think it's likely to bounce somewhere in this zone, so 24 to 26, somewhere in there. I say this because if we go back in time here, you guys can see that this held pretty solid as resistance. So we had this massive control bar here. And then once the bears got this thing pushed down below this level, it came back, tried to retest this level, could not break it, tried to retest it again for a double top, which is a bearish trading pattern, could not break it. And then we just sold off from that point. So the fact that this thing has come above and closed above it and is looking to retest is a very, very bullish sign, especially with this huge breakout candle right here. So I think likely that is going to hold. As you guys can see, we also had a bounce back here, so very significant area. And in terms of the previous cycles, Bollinger Bands, I mean, this thing was just ridiculous. You guys can see we were outside of the bands basically the entire time. I mean, it doesn't track all the way back, but you can kind of visualize what this would look like. It would pretty much be riding the top of the outside of the bands. So very similar thing for BCHG. The bands didn't appear all the way back here, so it kind of is what it is. We just have to go with current data that we have. So once again, it is outside of the bands, as you guys can see. So you got this contraction period and then the expansion period where the price would either rise or drop. In this case, it rose, and a pullback. Is it going to pull back to? Okay, it looks like. Hold on a second. So it looks like profit target got filled. Let me go ahead and move this real quick. So I want to ensure that I'm not losing money here. Trying to think of where a good, we'll put it 2 candles down. That should be fine. So anyways, I think likely that this thing is not going to go all the way down to the bottom of the band. As you guys can see, it's negative. That's not going to happen. This thing survived an entire bear market and it went back up. So that pretty much says all that needs to be said. So likely it's just going to bounce between $10 to $12.50. I do think that that is likely what's going to happen because, again, as you guys can see, after the first initial dump, we had kind of this chop, tried to recover here, could not do it, and then it got slammed down by this massive control bar here, and then we just continued to sell off from that point. And as you guys can see, this was also a breakout area where it came and retested and then bounced during the bull market. So it was used as both support and resistance during different phases of the cycle. So it's a very important level. I think that BCHG probably does not have much lower to go. I think at the lowest, maybe it wicks down a little bit to like $8 to $9 and then pops back up, or it just simply doesn't even go below support. But that's just, of course, my opinion. So anyways, as of right now, it looks like the supposed Black Swan event was negated. I sure hope that's the case because I don't know if let me show you guys how ugly this was for those of you that weren't actually around in 2020. It was pretty freaking ugly. So yeah, I think there was a lot of people that were probably freaking out back then. So I got to zoom out here a little bit to show you guys this, but this is the pandemic dump. You can see it right here, February to pretty much May or April, I guess in this case. So if you held anything up here, especially if you bought up here, like you bought the vast majority of your investments up here, you immediately got your risk on assets chopped in a third, essentially, for buying into the S&P. If you were DCAing in, let's say a few years back or whatever, you would have been fine. I'll give you guys an example. We had been buying index funds from all the way back in 2017, or sorry, not 2017, my bad, 2018. And, everything was kind of chopping sideways, going up, and then bang, this happened. And we went from being positive to negative, what seemed like overnight. Of course, we bought the dip and then made more along the way, but it's just kind of the idea that black swan event erased nearly 4 or 5 years worth of returns pretty much like instantly. So it's one of the reasons why I want to let you guys know about this potential of a black swan event, so you guys are not completely caught off guard. And in the event that it drops, hopefully you have prepared to be able to buy the dip. If you did not, well, lesson learned for next time. So we'll go back again one more time, take a look at Bitcoin, because you guys already know this is going to be worse than the S&P, because the S&P has been around for a long time. Bitcoin is not. It's very volatile compared to stocks. But you guys can see the drop here on Bitcoin just in a few weeks. I think this was like 4 or 5 weeks, was over 60%. It went down from like 10, 11,000 all the way down to 4,000. So pretty heinous drop. Of course, if something like that happened, all coins you already know are going to go down like 70, 80%. So anyways, this is the follow-up on the previous video. Hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.